Okay, so this is going to be a part 2 from the first video I put out a few days ago. This is from a prior controller than these four, so I'm basically going to be using this as an example. But all four of these controllers lasted me less than 5 months. And these two on the right here are $60, $70 controllers, nothing special about those. The Scuff Impact, $200, and the Modded Zone controller, it's a lot more money, but this one actually lasted the longest out of all these four, but I still did not even get 5 months from that one. I'm pretty sure this one lasted the longest just because the monster analog sticks are probably making it so I didn't have to press as hard forward, but I'm not too sure. I could have just got lucky. The one I'm basically going to be talking about mainly is this one today. So I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube, and like there's a lot of people will say if you're having some issues with the sprinting and the L3 clicking, there's a lot of guys will just tell you to blow in here and clean it all out. Now I can see that being a potential issue, but that should be something you may have to do once a year kind of thing, and depending on how much care you care for these, like for example, if you're eating pop rocks or something like that and that shit's all falling in here, if it's really dusty or whatever, obviously it's going to need to be cleaned out. But if none of that's happening, there really shouldn't be a need to clean it out. The other thing people were saying is if we look over here, you see that pinkish knob, and then there's a button right underneath that knob, and that's what causes you to sprint. Now there's a lot of guys saying that, you know, you can put a shim under there. Some guys use stickers the same shape as the button. I tried something very similar. I was using shims, and I went as far as doing a very careful job crazy gluing. I used the top of a McDonald's cup, and I cut a little circle the size of the button, and I was very careful when I crazy glued it on the button that I didn't crazy glue the button itself down or screw anything up. And when I tried to shim under here, it was probably the sprint and gameplay was maybe 70-75%. It was a little bit better, but it didn't solve the issue at all. Other guys were also saying that you can lubricate in here, that solves the issue. Now again, that really should be only something you would need to do maybe once a year kind of thing. That's typically not going to be your problem unless you do have an older controller. There's also one video of a guy was saying, if we look over here, there's like a little white piece sticking out of the screen part. Someone was mentioning that, you know, you got to replace that piece. So I took it out and I compared it with one from this side, and there was no difference. Like there was no wear anywhere. They all looked both exactly the same. I didn't even put one back in there and lock it up to see if that worked, because I mean there's nothing wrong with it. But what I did find eventually was, now I kind of was finicking with the actual Sprint L3, so I'm going to use this one as an example. This is the R3, but if you look level with my thumbnail here, you can see that little cut line in the stick. That is caused when you press forward and you're looking left and right, you will get that groove up there. Now when it's right there on your sprint and you're pressing forward, you're walking, and you go to click down to sprint, that's where the problem is. Once it gets locked in there, you have a hell of a time trying to sprint. It's just very, very inconsistent. And yeah, that is the issue. So that needs to be addressed. It's the gray plastic here which makes contact with that metal circle, which is rather sharp. What I did, the trick here was you can use maybe a nail file, some sandpaper, something of that nature. What I actually used was a razor blade, and what I did was I just put the blade in the crease, the groove there, and I just started to score the joystick upwards, and I did the whole front side up into maybe the corners. So I didn't do the sides and I didn't do the back, just the front part. And after a while, you keep scoring it. The idea is to get rid of that cut, the groove that's been created. So when you're finished, it will be, the top stick will be a little bit more narrow than the bottom, but then when you're pressing forward, you're not getting locked up into that crease. One more thing I'm going to go over with the scuff, because some of you guys may need to do this as well, and I really don't have an explanation to why I had to do this, but once I'll even take this apart. Once this one I actually fixed the same method I just showed you guys. Just give me a second. Okay, and once I scored this stick down, the analog stick you just see me rip off, it still seats on here. It's nice and tight, there's no problem. But I mean, eventually that crease is going to come back and you'll have to do the same thing, and eventually this will just wear thin and it will snap, or maybe the analog stick won't go on afterwards. So eventually you're going to need a controller or to actually replace this. My TV just turned on real quick, but no problem. So yeah, anyways, back to the other thing I did here is, once I got rid of that groove, let's see if I can actually show you. It's hard to see, but you can't really notice a cut or groove there. It's gone. And as soon as when I was finished to test this, I put the analog stick back on, I put the ring back on, and it was maybe 90-95%. It was very, very good, but I still had the odd hesitation when it came to the sprint. And what I had to do also was, I noticed when I would take the ring off and I would just leave the analog stick on there, what I noticed, if I tried to sprint this way, it was 100%. There was no issue whatsoever. It was perfectly accurate. It never hesitated once for me. But it's and I almost suggested to myself, just leave the ring out of there, fuck it kind of thing. But it's kind of annoying because you have those grooves where the ring slides into place. So when you bypass those, it's not the most smoothest, comfortable feeling. So what I had to do was, I took the ring, and same idea is, I took the razor blade and I just scored the inside ever so slightly. So I made the opening a little bit wider. Once I did that, I put the ring back on and to do a final test, and it was 100%. It wasn't a problem. You guys might not have to do that. I'm thinking, because I did so many experiments under here with shims and finicking with that knob, the pink knob we were talking about earlier, that could have to do with why I had to do that. So you guys might not have to worry about that at all. And I'm not even sure if you guys can tell how much more I opened that. That's how little it was. So it wasn't a huge difference, but I did score the inner part of the ring, and once I did that, it's 100%. So if this helps you out, share and like this video. It's not for my personal YouTube growth. Not trying to promote my channel. Strictly the designers and manufacturers should see this, because there's nobody talking about this. I have two ideas for a solution. That stick, like right here, this plastic stick, it can even remain plastic, but somebody's got to make this where the stick is metal and this metal frame is plastic. I would highly doubt there'd be anywhere at all. Or another thing you can do is, like I said, you can leave this plastic, but if that's the case, similar to the O-ring here, there should be a plastic kind of top that snaps on top of here. So when you're pressing forward and moving around, it's plastic on the smooth plastic instead of that sharp metal nonsense, because that makes no sense. You blow through, if you're a first-person shooter player, you blow through L3s so fast. And yeah, there's just not really a easy fix to that. There's temporary fixes, which I showed you, but that's just not convenient. So if they made a snap-on piece that was plastic, then they don't even have to make this metal at all, and we can just replace those fairly simply. If anybody else has any other suggestions, recommendations, if they fixed it a better method, let me know down in the comments so I don't have to fix these every couple months. Peace out.